Hello, and welcome to all our amazing listeners. I'm Adele Shrosbury, the Marketing Coordinator here at Spencer Lane. Spencer Lane is a rec-to-rec and business advisory agency working with forward-thinking recruitment agencies across Australia. The purpose of this podcast is to pull together industry specialists from all over the world to provide you, our listeners, with educational podcasts. We really hope you get some great insights and value from these episodes. We would also like to thank our amazing sponsor Bullhorn for donating $2,000 to Beyond Blue to sponsor our first 10 episodes. An incredibly generous donation which is very much appreciated. For those who don't know Bullhorn, Bullhorn is a global leader in software for the recruitment industry with one of its main offices based in Sydney. More than 10,000 companies rely on Bullhorn's cloud-based platform to power their recruitment processes from start to finish. Thanks again, Bullhorn. You guys rock. Louise Archer is a retained search specialist. Prior to opening her retained training business named Retrained Search, Louise worked for search firms where one of her many highlights was when she trebled her billings in 12 months and developed a retained search division, which now turns over £8 million using her methods. Louise is on a mission to help recruitment agencies successfully build retained search sales and delivery capability. Now over to Louise.
I'm Louise Archer, and I'm the founder of Retrained Search. I've been in recruitment pretty much all my career, about 20 years, showing my age, on and off. I did leave the industry briefly. I fell out of love with it. And came back in, and I'm so glad I did, because I had no idea that the industry had so much to offer, really, and I didn't know the breadth of the opportunity that there was here. And I'm so really happy with the way that everything panned out in the end. So that's a bit about me. I've got 2 kids. I live in north of the UK, not far from Manchester, where I run our small business teaching contingent recruiters how to sell and deliver retained search.
That's awesome. Thanks for that, Louise. I'm so glad I actually came across you. This has been something that I've been quite passionate about for a long time. And my business is exclusively retained. But it's been one of those things that every recruiter wants to, but they just never start. And I get asked this quite a lot by recruiters: how do you sell a retained service? And to me, it just kind of came naturally. So it's hard for me to actually give them advice and guidance on how to move from contingent to retained. So I'm glad that I've come across you in your business, because I actually don't know anyone else or any other business that actually trains recruiters on this. And I think overall, the training for recruiters it's never really geared towards retained search, is it? I mean,
that's right.
I mean, I joined one of the largest recruitment agencies in the UK, and that's where I cut my teeth. And over three and a half years with them, not once did anyone even bring up the word retained. And they're one of the world's largest. It's nuts, isn't it?
Yeah, it is nuts. And I was the same, because I was formerly trained at Hudson, which is a global business. I worked for NES, Swift, all global businesses, and I was exactly the same. I didn't come across it until very, very late in my career, and I'd always thought it was a bit mysterious, and definitely for senior positions, and something that I would probably never get involved with or be able to get involved with. And when I did start seeing it firsthand, and I only came across it by accident. I came across a guy that was selling retainers in one of the businesses I worked in, and because I was so close physically sitting near him, I could hear exactly what he was doing. And that was when I started realizing, God, this is not difficult. Why is everybody not doing this? I just don't, why has nobody taught me how to do this? I could not understand it. And even now, I can't understand why the default is to teach recruiters how to operate on a contingent basis when it's so flawed. I'm not going to knock it too much, because it has its place, I'm certain, but It's such a difficult way of working.
It really is, isn't it? It's so funny. I remember moving to Australia, 5.5 years ago. And I was still not a junior consultant, but I'd never sold retained. And I joined a business. And I remember at the time there was one agency that everyone talked about, 6 Degrees Executive. And the perception in my head, because I'd never really been taught on retained search, perception in my head was that it was only for super senior positions, CEO, MD, GM level. And they were kind of like this unattainable business that I thought were just top of their class. But it's so strange. And now I go, well, no, you can do retained search on $60,000 to $70,000 positions. It's actually not the seniority, it's the service is the difference. It's not actually the salary level.
Yeah, and even less. I mean, I helped a friend out occasionally. I do some search work. I do less of it now. I was doing sort of 3 or 4 a year. Now it's 1 or 2. But I helped a friend out with a financial services business last year, and he just wanted some really good telesales staff, 4 or 5, only 20k, 25k, really low level. But I did it all on a retained basis. It definitely doesn't need to be senior. It can be any piece of recruitment if it's either, it's important, or it's critical, or it's urgent, or it's maybe they want a specific type of person, or they want more than one, where one is, relatively easy, but 3 or 4, or in that case 5 was much harder. There's a really clear and easy recommendation that working on a retained basis is actually the best way to deliver that kind of project.
Oh, absolutely. There's so many benefits to clients, isn't there? And we'll go into all of those a little bit later, Louise. But just a quick question. In your sort of history of working and training consultants, what percentage of recruiters do you believe work only on a retained basis? Because my perception in Australia, my guess would be, and this is shocking, I was talking to my partner about this a few days ago. I was like, I think I'm probably the 5% of Australian recruiters that work only on retainer basis. And I'm like, that's quite scary, surely. Hopefully I'm wrong.
Quite scary. I don't know. What it makes me think is there are some big firms that only work on a retained basis. Your SHREKs, your Spencer Stewarts, and the Heidricks and Egon Zenders and Cornberries, and they're quite big global businesses, but they've got, they're heavy in the UK. And there is a fair amount of boutique search firms that have set up mainly by people that have left those firms and then set up their own businesses. I don't know. Maybe it's more in the UK, I would have thought. 10% maybe?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's scary, isn't it?
Not enough.
Yeah, totally. And occasionally I'll interview a consultant, and they'll be in a mid-sized firm, say 40-odd consultants, and I'll always ask, what's the percentage of retained work that you guys do and you personally do? And it's always a sprinkle here and there. It's, so-and-so occasionally picks up a role and it's retained. And you start questioning further, how often do you actually personally ask for retained work? And it's very rarely. I go, well, actually, if you're not asking for it, you're never going to get it.
Yeah, but I think there's this real, just as there was with me and you as well, before we really came across it and started understanding it more, is there's just a real lack of knowledge of what it actually is. Because people aren't sure what it is, they find it really difficult to articulate the benefits of it to a client. And how can a client buy it when they can't really understand exactly what the benefit is to buying it? I think a lot of recruiters have a perception or a preconception that it's money up front, that it's just the same service, or it's doing the same thing as they would normally, but just getting some money up front. And how can you sell that to a client? It's really difficult, isn't it, to make a case for that to be the right thing for them to do.
Wait, I was trying to think about all of the sort of barriers that I had. as a contingent recruiter and why I didn't jump into retained. And the things that I fell on personally, I obviously can't speak for anyone else. And I think these align with why I think most recruiters don't do it, is one, the initial training that you get. I think it's always pushed on me as a rookie that you just take any work that you can get. The master-servant relationship. If a client says this, you kind of just do it. And I think personal belief was a big one. Not believing the service you provide is worth it. I think for years at the start of recruitment, every time the fee was paid, and I'll say this now, and I'm like, yeah, seriously, it's so crazy to me think that now, because now I know all the value add and all the work that goes into it. But back then, my perception of recruitment, even though I was working bloody hard and 6 days a week at Office Angels, but every time a fee got paid, I'd go, oh my God, I can't believe they've just paid £9,000. And so my perception was that they were just paying for a service that actually wasn't worthwhile. And so then to go from that to charging higher fees on a retained basis was never going to happen, because I personally didn't believe in it and didn't believe that the service that I was providing was worth it. What other barriers do you find with your sort of course attendees? What sort of struggles are they having, and why haven't they jumped into it sooner?
Well, I mean, I think you're just on that for a minute. I think you're absolutely right. I was the same. I was always constantly surprised that there was suddenly a fee that was about to, land. And it didn't feel, it sort of felt like at any point they were going to take it away again, that it was almost cheeky that I was charging them for the service that I was offering, which is just so wrong. I don't know why that is the way that we perceive our service, but it definitely is. And asking for money up front, I mean, gosh, no way, even more cheeky. And I think, even now, so many recruiters that I come across that kind of they like the sound of it and they want to do it, but they just don't know how on earth they would broach that discussion, because they think it sounds, it's not acceptable. They don't feel it's right to ask for that money. And I think one of the things that I do to help people understand that isn't the case is ask them how a client would feel if they actually saw exactly what it was that you did. I think quite a lot of the time clients say, when you're working with them on a contingent basis, I think I like that candidate, or I really like that, her or him or whatever, but I think I just want to see some more CVs. And at the other side of that, you're thinking, Jesus, there are no more CVs. I've looked everywhere, and I've spent days and days and days. And it's so difficult for you to be able to say that to a client when it's just words. It's just whereas if you think of it like a maths exam, where you get 10 points, or 9 points for your working out and 1 point for the answer, and you actually show a client that you've been through and looked at, let's say, 100 profiles. You've reached out to almost all of those people, and 40 of them have said they're not interested. 30 of them you've managed to get a discussion with. You've spoken to all of those people, and out of those 15 aren't quite right because of this, this and this. That 10 of them look okay. You're going to have a further discussion with them to let it sink in and talk about their family situation. And 5 of them you've decided that don't meet the brief. How would that client feel if you actually showed him everything and showed him all of those candidates that you've identified and that you've approached and that have said no and that have said yes and that you've had a conversation with, you've screened? He's not going to say, I think I just want to see some more CVs. He's going to realise that the reason you've only got one CV is because you've been through everybody. And I think on a contingent basis, because we don't record that and we don't track all of the work that we do, it just feels like something that we do when we get into the office. It doesn't feel that that's part of our the value that we're providing to the customer.
100%, couldn't agree more there, Louise. And I think there's so much value in sharing that information and that sort of educational piece to clients. And we've all had this before. Everyone who's been in recruitment for longer than a few months will have had this scenario before. You send a CV, it's a perfect candidate. The client goes, great, Ez, that actually only took you 3 hours. Can I have a discount? I'm like, no, this has actually taken me longer than 3 hours. All the background work, do you know how many people I interview every week, year in, year out? All of that work piles up, and usually don't get paid for it when you're contingent. So someone needs to pay for all of that time. So I think the background and the educational piece to clients, because I think we all know when we know what we know as recruiters and all the process and the time that goes into it, but a large part of the time clients are not aware.
No,
So,
they're just
giving them all of that info, and especially on the retained basis, the value of that service is also, it's not just the end result, it's keeping them sort of aware of everything that's going on. That's a value. I don't always say this to my clients. All the people that you don't see, that's where my value is. You're not wasting your time. I'm doing all of that work. You're only seeing one person, maybe two, but I'm not sending you heaps of people because that's my job. You're paying me to do that job. And it's all the people that you're not seeing. That's where the value is. And you're not wasting your time because I'm screening them. I'm assessing them. It's all of that work that they're paying for.
Yeah, and when you're working on that kind of basis, the amount of information that you can bring to the client that which you could do on a contingent basis. It's risky. I wouldn't advise it because spending that amount of time and not knowing whether you're going to get a fee or not is really risky. But working on a retained basis, you can collect all sorts of information for them, can't you? How are they perceived in the market? What's the salaries? What are the benefits? How are people bonus? How are they rewarded? Who do they want to work for? What's their preferred career path? All that information, all that valuable information, which can feed into the client's strategy that he doesn't get if you just send him, CVs. But I think the other thing that certainly the contingent recruiters that we meet and we come across there's a sort of mystique around retained search, that there's something happening there that they don't know about, or there's things being done. I think part of it is around the assessment of candidates, and part of it is around, I think search firms talk a good game around assessing candidates and having their complex processes for leadership development and things like that make us as we were contingent recruiters a bit blinded by their science and the complexity of it all, and it can put a lot of people off. Having had first-hand access to the processes that those firms use was one of the things that made me realise that it just is not. It's not what it seems, and it isn't complicated. And it really is very, very, straightforward. And anybody that's got a capability in recruitment, it can apply, the same basic principles and achieve the same results.
That's so true. I didn't even think of it like that. But yeah, that's exactly what you do, don't you? As a contingent recruiter, you put these retained recruiters on a pedestal thinking they're doing something amazingly different to you, and that's why they can charge upfront fees, which is what you say to yourself as a contingent recruiter. But the process is a process. It's still recruitment. It's just a different sort of mindset shift, I think.
It is. Yeah, well, one of the ways that I help recruiters to mentally kind of break down that barrier and realise, what retained search is all about, is to say that, basically on a retained basis, fundamentally, all you're doing is mitigating against all of the things that could go wrong, meaning that you can guarantee a fill. That you can commit to working with the client until the position is filled. So you can take a thorough brief, you can map out the target companies and map the geography, you can nail down exactly what they want in terms of competency, functional and behavioural, and that sounds complicated, but it isn't. and go away and do a really thorough search and share all of the workings to mitigate against the client saying, I just want to see some more CVs. And, you know, have regular feedback sessions that are fixed, you know, obligatory, so you can make sure that you're constantly working together if you're facing challenges, and just basically put together a really robust process that's going to work for you and make sure that you can have everything that you need to be able to fill the position, that's going to educate the client in the process so he knows exactly what he's choosing from and that he has to choose from that talent pool. And, you know, give the candidate the best experience to be able to keep them in the process all the way through. And that's it. It's as simple as that. Whatever that process needs to be for that position, whether it's a 25k sales position and actually what you need to do is take them out for a coffee, or get to know them as a mate to know whether it's just a right fit, or whether it's a senior position and you need to put a more sophisticated process to impress them and assess them. And present them to the client. Whatever it is, just that putting that thing in that makes sure that you can work with them and commit to working with them until it's filled is all it is. It's all it needs to be.
Louise, I had a candidate not long ago grilled me on my retained process. I'm actually working with him at the moment, providing some mentorship to him. But one of the key things that he wanted from me was the retainer piece and how he goes out to do that. He should probably actually just join your course. He'll get a lot more value from you than he will me. But one of these things was, as I'm scared of part of me is scared of getting retainers because I'm not sure I can fill them. My only piece of advice there was, when I started taking on retainers, I got very, very selective about the businesses that I was partnering with and taking very thorough sort of information before I even committed to the retainer. How do you counteract that? I'm sure you've had that with attendees, that deep down fear of, well, I kind of don't want a retainer because I can walk away from clients that I don't want to work with if it's not successful.
Yeah, definitely. And it reminds me of the 3 occasions that we teach not to take a retainer. One of them is if you don't think you can fill it. You know, if off the bat you're looking at it and thinking, geez, that's, not only is it tough, but I just don't know whether that's possible, then I would say be really careful about taking it on, and essentially just don't take it on. And one of them is if you don't want to commit to it. You know, we do meet some consultants who like the sound of retained and the mystique and the glamour maybe, or the money or the prestige, but when it actually comes down to it, that's what they're in it for. You know, they're in it because of the money or the glamour or their ego, and not because they actually want to provide a brilliant service. They're not driven to do that. And this model doesn't suit that type of person, because you can't walk away if the going gets tough, and they want to be able to. So that's why, I don't mean to be promoting the course, I don't mean to do that at all, but I think what's nice is if you take a group of people and teach them how to do it, there's always going to be half of those people that say, actually, now I can see what it entails, which is real commitment and a tenacity to reach a result each and every time. I think I'd rather just go back to being able to pick up what I want and drop it when I'm fed up with it, or if I don't think I can get there. So yes, in short, I'm agreeing with you. I think that just to finish that little piece on, when not to take it on, I think the other one that's really key is when the client is, I use the word unpleasant to deal with, then don't. If you're thinking, when you're talking to the client, oh God, he's a bit of a pain, or I'm not gonna, you didn't really like her, or what, then you're probably not going to want to work in partnership for as long as it takes to reach a result. So just don't put yourself in that position.
Absolutely.
So, and I would say, I think the other thing to remember with, your guy and that worry, and I think we do get it quite a lot, where they don't want to take some it is just a genuine fear of taking something on, that they're going to let the client down or let themselves down, and they just don't want to fail, and they don't want to set themselves up to fail. I think the thing to remember is, You can do so much more when you're working on a retained basis. When you're not constrained with that constant risk of not ending up with the fee or somebody else getting there first. You know, for example, when you're working on a contingent basis, you've got to work so fast, because even if the client said, yeah, you can have it exclusive, you just never know when somebody might spec a CV in and the client might think, oh, actually, you know, I'm interviewing that because you've got no actual commitment to hire through you. And it doesn't, you just say, I'm really sorry, you know, something landed in our lap and it was too good for us to not, you know, and it happens all the time. Or to say, I'm really sorry, mate, I know you spent some time on this, but we've actually decided we're just going to change the way that we structure the team. And I know it happens all the time because it used to happen to me all the time. And so you're constantly at risk. And when you're talking to candidates, you're constantly thinking, come on, just give me a CV so I can get it over. And, you know, go and talk to your wife, but come back to me tomorrow because because you've got to get the candidate over, because you've got to mitigate against that risk of somebody else getting there first, which means you don't have the time to make sure that they're really right for the job. You don't have the time to let them fully consider it before pushing them into a process that you're then at huge risk of them pulling out of. And so on a retained basis, you can do so much more to mitigate against all of those things and to make sure that you do fill the job. And don't forget that it's a team effort. It's not a them and us anymore. It's you and the client working together to reach a result. And if you're sharing all of your workings with the client and sharing where you've been and what you've done so far and where you're up to, if you hit a problem, it's an honest discussion. Look, this is what's happened. This is where we're at. This is what we've done so far. What shall we do now? Where should we go now? So I think removing that fear, but in that way, really helps people to be more confident about taking things like that on.
Oh, I love everything you just said, Louise. It's so true. The conversations are so different, and it is a partnership. It sounds really corny. We're in a partnership, but it really
is. But it's true.
And the conversations are so different. And I've got a very live example of a retainer that I haven't filled, who's for an amazing exec search firm up in Cairns. And I took it on because I can wholeheartedly believe in this MD. I just think she's incredible. But given what's going on with COVID, I've been searching. We had 3 offers out for 3 different candidates. They reneged because of the location, and we were looking for people to move to Cairns, and it's far north Australia. Oh, you've been to Australia, so you would know where Cairns is.
I've never been to Australia.
Haven't you? Oh.
Never. I would love to go. Yeah, I will. This is, this part of my plan to, find more recruiters that need some help around retained, and then I can start to make my way over.
Louise. But yeah, 4 weeks in. My normal sort of process takes 6 weeks on average to turn around to placement, and I think we were 8 weeks in, and every week we called up, and towards 7 weeks I just picked up the phone and I was like, look, Eva, this is actually, I'm just finding this really hard. These are the reasons it's not working. We've had 3 offers there. What's going on at the moment in COVID? People are just terrified of moving. 1, moving companies, and 2, up sticks and moving completely to the other side of Australia. And all these restrictions are coming into play. People physically won't be able to move.
People are really nervous at the moment. Yeah, they really are.
And it was just a very honest conversation. And I actually, you'll probably say never do this, but I felt bad. So I was like, look, Eva, I'm happy to give you your retainer back. I feel bad that I've not delivered for you. And she's like, absolutely not. Her exact words, absolutely not. As we've done so much work on this. Get your retainer. We'll revisit it. Maybe Jan, Feb, when things open back up. It's like, what a good conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Or you apply it to the next position, which has a really nice impact of leaving a positive impression on the client and securing the next piece of work as your own. So I completely agree. And sometimes when what we're doing as recruiters is helping clients to see the benefit, helping them to see the benefit of working in this way by allowing us to show them or demonstrate the effectiveness of the approach. And so I often say on the first project, if they're really struggling with that, but I get what you're saying, and I do really want to, but I'm just a bit worried about giving you that money, in advance. then why not work on a reimbursable basis if you need to for the first project to demonstrate capability and just alleviate that real concern that they've got, as long as that's what it is and it isn't just well, I'm just hedging my bets because I want to be able to cancel it partway through. If you sense that there's a genuine desire there, then make it easy. And what I tend to advise people to do is to make it reimbursable for a period of time for the first 2 weeks, so that it's not reimbursable for the duration of the project. But it leaves you open to do what you did, which is if you can't fill it, you can say, actually, let me apply that to the next project, so that it doesn't feel that I've taken advantage of you. But more often than not, if you're providing, and sharing workings, as we talked about before, and you're sharing what that talent pool looks like, the candidates in it, the demographics, the experience levels, the propensity of people to move, if every time you're speaking to a candidate, you're asking them, if you're not ready now for a move, when might you be? And understanding that propensity, is it 6 months, 12 months, 18 months? What kind of thing will you be looking for? What's the next step in your career? And do you have that opportunity where you are? Can you see it? And actually, that's a pipeline, so you might not have filled that position right now, but you've got a pipeline of candidates that are going to be ready for the future. And the salary data and the perception data to feed into their EVP and so on, then what you're giving the candidate is way more, the client is way more than probably what their investment was. It's some management information. It's a research report, really, even if it's just a simple spreadsheet. And again, that's the other thing, the mystique around, retained search firms, these reports and the I just can't believe how impressed I used to be by their capability. And I'm not taking anything away from them, because they are very, they're very good at what they do, and they've perfected the ability to be able to package up information really nicely and charge an extortionate amount of money for it, which is admirable, which is impressive. But that's all it is. It is just information that's packaged really nicely and written by Oxford or Cambridge grads. So it's not rocket science, and I really like to demystify that for people.
That's so true, isn't it? Every recruiter has all of that information. If they're doing their job correctly as a recruiter contingent, they'll have all that information, and it is just a fancy package, isn't it, with a really nice logo from an exec search firm. That's what basically, it's the shine. But the actual information that you're passing on to your clients is invaluable. That salary data, as you said, is it in line with the market? Because that's gold dust information to the clients that otherwise haven't done that information. Comms data, perception in the market, all these things, what people think of them, so they can, even if it's not actually hiring right now for that position, because they're not positioning themselves well, that information that they otherwise wouldn't get from a contingent recruiter.
Yeah, and it might be that, one of the searches that we did for a big global chemicals firm was really, really, really difficult. We knew it was going to be difficult. The site client said it was only like 3 or 4 people in the world that had the skill set to do the job. But our job was to look for not only those people, but anybody that was closest possible to that footprint or that DNA. And actually, we presented the findings to the client, all the candidates that we'd identified, all of the target businesses we'd found them in, their propensity to move, what would their career trajectory look like, how they perceived this particular company in the market. Was it a destination that they were ever going to consider? If not, why not? So how could this company change that perception in the market? And all of the salary data, and all the benefits and the bonuses, all their locations, where in the world they were and where in the world they would consider working. And what they decided to do in the end was change things around internally to build they actually split the role into 2. Because they could see that it wasn't sustainable, not just right now, but for the future. There wasn't an N-1, there wasn't a succession plan either. So they made a huge business and really critical business decision about a very key hire in their organisation on the basis of the piece of work that they did, a piece of work that we did for them, which was just the first part of a piece of recruitment.
Yeah.
It wasn't, it wasn't anything more than that. But no, of course they didn't want that money back. And I went to them and said, look, I'm really sorry, but we haven't, we've done this, and this is where we've got to, and this is where we've got to, and this is what we know now, but our candidate isn't there. How do you feel about that? And a bit like you, I'm happy to reimburse. And they were the same. Absolutely not. We've paid you for the work that you've done, and we're happy with that. So, and in fact, actually recently, I've been privy to some information, should we say, some documents that from some of these big firms, and I look at their clauses, their payment terms, and they charge on commencement of project 30 days later. So not a shortlist, not CVs submitted, just 30 days later, regardless of what they do on it. And then the last one, 30 days after that. So regardless of anything that's happened or been done, they could literally do nothing for 90 days and bill the full fee. All three firms, the same terms. So really, when we're saying to a client, look, I really want to put in a robust process that's going to mean that I commit to working with you until the position is filled. And a lot of the time, a lot of the consultants we're working with, they're not charging any more for that service. They're just saying, I'm happy to work with you at the same fee that we would do on a contingent basis. It's simply the payment model or the schedule that's different, in that, a portion of that is payable on commencement of the project to enable me to put that process in and commit to working with you. Then you start thinking, it's an absolute no-brainer, really, for the client. It's an absolute bargain compared to the way a search firm would charge and bill for it. So
that's exactly it.
I get overly passionate about it.
Me too. I've got another. I was going to say something else, but I'm going to say what just popped into mind based on what you've just said. I always get a lot of pushback from candidates when I'm talking about this, where they go, oh, I can't ask the clients that have already been charging on a contingent basis to pay me a retainer. And I go, that should be the easiest one for me to sell a retainer to. Like, you physically have had success with that client. Wouldn't that be the most easy conversation to go, that's the client, this is all the success that I've had with you. This is why I need to work now moving forward. You've seen my capability moving forward. This is how I need to charge because I want to prioritize you and continue prioritizing you. That should be
and that's the word there, continue. That's the one that in fact, I had the same conversation. I do a Q&A with our American teams on a Tuesday evening, and one of them exactly having the same challenge. They've got some great clients that they've serviced for years, like 10 years, and they just couldn't, they're right at the beginning of our program, and they just couldn't see yet how they were going to be able to transition. They get the benefits of retain and they get all that, but how am I going to say that to a client that I've done really well with on a contingent basis? And that word continue there is what makes all the difference. Especially, we've got a great opportunity, because what happened to a lot of us or a lot of contingent recruiters over the pandemic, and continues to happen, is that clients pull jobs, or things happen, which means that I'm really sorry, we're not actually going to hire it. And so recruiters have spent a lot of time and effort working on something that then hasn't resulted in a fee, which gives us a really good opportunity to revisit with our client when they bring a job spec to us or they bring a position to us, to say, okay, yes, I can help you with that. I can help you with that. My capability. That I am able to support you and reach a result with you on this. However, the way that we have been working is leaving me really vulnerable, and I'm at risk. I'm at huge risk, and it's happened to me several times recently where I put an awful lot of time and effort and I don't end up with a fee. So in order to continue to provide the level of service that I have been providing to you, and even it actually allows me to provide a better level of service, I would really like to work with you on a retained basis to put, and it doesn't need to cost any more. I'm not asking for more money. I'm just asking for some financial commitment that allows me to put a robust process and therefore commit to working with you until that position's filled. So it is a perfect opportunity to transition your clients, your existing clients, to retained.
If people listening to this take absolutely nothing else from this episode, please just try it with a few clients that you've had success with, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Because that's a no-brainer to me, absolute no-brainer. Louise, just going back to something we commented on earlier, which is the belief in yourself and your service. How do you get, and I think our industry suffers from this a lot, we very rarely get people that are very proud to be in recruitment. I'm incredibly proud to be in recruitment. I love this industry, but that's come over the last 5 years, I would say. How do you teach someone to be proud of what they do? Because I don't think there's a lot of pride in recruitment. And you see it across every other professional services industry. You get quite a lot of people that are proud to be in fin services or banking. They pride themselves on the fact that they're in that industry and they've actively chosen to be in that industry. But when you get an industry like ours where people generally just fall into it, I think that never falls off in their heads that they've just fallen into it. But we continue to choose it year in, year out. So it then becomes a choice. Yes, we fell into it, but I'd love people to stop saying that, well, I just fell into this. It's like, no, you've chosen to be in this continuously. This is your chosen profession.
Yeah, I do agree with you in part, but I think a lot of consultants that are in, or a number of consultants that are in, working on a contingent basis, have fallen into it by accident, and it was just the job that they ended up getting because they didn't get something else, or they couldn't because they didn't have the qualifications. And I guess that's why I think quite a lot of people, I'm trying to think, I'm in it because my mum actually she had her own recruitment business, and so as a teenager, even at 6 or 7 years old, I was filing CVs in the summer holidays, and me and my brother are the same, and he's in recruitment as well. So and I think for a long time I wasn't proud of it either, and it is a sort of used car salesman type of feel when you say you're a recruiter or in recruitment. But I just think that when you're sending CVs out, that is your perception of what you're actually doing, and occasionally one is hitting the mark and you're getting a fee for it, it feels a bit sharky. And so when people say, oh, you recruiters, you're all sharks, you sort of feel like, yeah, I kind of am a little bit. I'm not going to pretend that it's that it isn't, because we've all been there. We've all sent a CV and thought, no way, and then gone, Jesus, wow, that was lucky. Quick, get it in the bank, get the money on the board, and not say any more about it. What changes when you work on a retained basis, and I see this with so many consultants that come through the program, is because you're not doing that anymore. You're not just sending CVs. You are taking on assignments and working in partnership with that client until that position is filled. It's not about renaming yourself, but you just become a search consultant. You're no longer a recruiter just sending CVs, and with that comes that perception and that realization that actually you're incredibly valuable. And when the client starts to say to you in your feedback sessions or in your steering meetings, what do you think, and where do you think we should go from here, and what do you think about where we've been so far, and what do you think if, and genuinely is looking for your expertise and your advice, you don't feel sharky anymore. And when people say, what do you do? And I see this with consultants, I've got a few in my mind at the moment where I know now, 6 months later, having made this transformation, will say, I'm a search consultant. I partner with my clients to find talent. And they'll say that to a mate, they won't just say, oh, I'm a recruiter, sort of on the side. So I think I agree with you, and it's a shame, but that contingent process doesn't help that perception and doesn't help the perception of yourself.
Louise, how do you think it's possible for someone in a 30-person agency to make that change themselves when the rest of the business, one, doesn't understand it or believe in it, the retained search piece? I think it is hard when you're trying to make any change within a business. For me, it needs to come from the top. But the owners, the GMs, the managers need to believe in it, and they need to be the ones also doing it versus just one consultant going, I'm going to try it.
I think it's so sad. I see this situation a lot. We get contacted by individual recruiters that want to do this and want to transition or want to learn how to do it, so that at least they can pick the assignments. A lot of people don't necessarily want to just go, oh, well, I only want to do that now. Some people do. Some people, as soon as they realize what it is, it's like, right, screw that, I'm not doing that anymore, I want to do that all the time. Some people do that, but more often than not, it's I want to be able to offer it in certain situations. And they come to us and they want to, and because of the amount of time that I spend with people and the way that we take people through the program, it's often not affordable for people to be able to do it on their own if they're paying for it out of their own pocket, and it's more often than not needs to be funded by the leaders of the business, which is great if, like you say, those leaders have bought into this and this is what they want to do. But if they're not, then it leaves that individual that really wants to be able to do it in a really difficult position. And can that person do it? Yes. Have we worked with people like that? Yes, we have. And have they transitioned themselves and their desk and their clients to either completely retained or in part retained? Yes, we have. But it has meant that in several cases that person has then outgrown that organisation, and that organisation can no longer offer them the kind of career path or the learning that they want from the next step in their career. Yeah. So I guess my advice for the leaders of businesses like that is, or any recruitment business offering a contingent service really, is enable that career path and those opportunities for those people that strive to work with their clients in this way. And that will mean that you will keep those high potential, and that's what they are, the people that really want to work in true partnership with their clients. I would always label as high potential, because that's the future, it's the way forward. It's all the successful people that you see in the industry, people that are passionate about, well, actually I can think of a few exceptions, so that's not true. but all of the ones that I would aspire to are the ones that have really strive to be partners to their clients.
Oh, it's such a no-brainer, Louise. Seriously, the amount of times they'll talk to clients and their big goals always is a bigger temp book. But not once have I heard a client go, our goal for the next 3 years or next 2 years or next 1 year is to increase our contingent volume for retained volume from 5% to 20%. No one's ever said that to me. And I just,
do you know, that's crazy, because there are more firms doing that in the UK. In fact, just yesterday, we did the launch with a team who that is their business objective, is to get to 20% retained by the end of next year, where they do none at the moment. So I do think, in fact, one of the first clients that I worked with are now, and they've been setting their sights higher and higher, and they're now at 45% retained, where they didn't have any before. So I don't know what's the market like in Australia in terms of compared to the UK. Or
I would say overall, and I love Australia, absolutely love it. But I would say Australia overall, in my eyes anyway, in my experience, is a few years behind UK practices and how they operate. They're a few years behind. So maybe that will become more of
it's coming then.
Yeah.
It's coming then.
It must be, and it's about bloody time, I'd say.
About bloody time, absolutely. I could not agree with you more. The number of recruiters and teams that I see just really fed up with being let down by clients and having the rug pulled from under them, and fees falling apart just because one candidate's decided they don't want to take the job, and it's just soul destroying, because so many of them are so good. They're so good, and they really care about what they're doing, and they've got so much potential, and I see them getting year after year just getting more and more disillusioned and fed up with it. And one of the guys I've worked with that I can think of straight away was literally about to leave the industry, and he was so good, but he was just so done with being messed about by clients. And it wasn't because the clients were unpleasant, it was that horrible process that he was trying to deliver in.
Oh yeah. And actually, it's it's not even just there's huge benefits with business. We all know the benefits and we can talk about them till the cows come home. But one of the biggest
Yeah.
benefits, I think, is attracting staff. When you can have that as one of your main sort of differentiators, and it doesn't sound like a huge differentiator, but it bloody is in a market that is,
It
in my head,
hugely
5%
is.
retained. And actually, just the burnout for consultants, we all know the average tenure I read was 11 months in recruitment, which is insane.
That's terrible.
But imagine a scenario where your consultants aren't getting fed up and aren't getting messed around by clients, and they're actually proud of what they do because they've been trained and encouraged to work on a retained basis. They're all of a sudden they want to come in and partner with their clients, and they're getting treated well and they're getting valued by their clients. You're much likely to retain that staff member. And I think
Absolutely. I mean, we get consultants that come to us that say, can you tell me who is investing in this training, because I'd like to work with a business that is moving in this direction. And it definitely is a differentiator in this market. And I know consultants moving for that opportunity. So it's a no-brainer from everybody's perspective, really. You know, as an employer or as a recruitment business looking to attract the highest caliber of consultant, you know, where do you go when you're a really successful contingent biller? Either you stay in that and you burn out. That's basically what happens. You burn out, or you go into management, which not everybody is destined to do, but then you're watching other people burn out. And the path is so much more mature. I think somebody said to me the other day, it's a bit like grown up recruitment. It becomes a career. It becomes a career. It becomes a profession, and you can become a practice leader, not just a well-paid recruiter.
Yeah. Louise, one of my final questions, I'm conscious that I've already taken an hour of your time. One of the pushbacks, again, that I get from candidates is I don't have the runway and time to make this work because this sort of stuff takes months and months to build. And I go, absolutely not. It's not been the case for me. It's the same as contingent recruitment. It's just a different process. And if you understand it, it turns around very quickly. In my head, I'm guessing it's the same. That would be your advice too? Do
you mean in terms of the delivery of an actual project, or being able to do it?
Just being able to do it and transition and get your first retainer on.
Oh my God, no. Like literally it happens with some people, literally happens overnight. You know, we have the first session, or they do, you know, the first section of the course, which is mindset. And some of them literally walk out of that and go, oh my God, I've got a perfect opportunity right in front of me. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it. And they come back and the next day and they're like, I did it. I won it. They said yes. And look, this is great. And it happens all the time. We've had 3 great wins this week already. And one of them was straight out of that first session. Hasn't even really fully embarked on the program and already is winning projects. So absolutely not. And these are people that have never even thought about working on a retained basis, didn't know it was possible, didn't really know what it was. So absolutely not. It does not take months. Some people it's longer, some people it takes a while, some people just by nature of their personality, they really want to see the ins and outs of everything before they then recommend it to a client, because they really want to know what they're in for. And some people just aren't as lucky, you know, they try it and they don't win it, which happens, and they'll try it again, and then or some of these projects these guys are winning, I mean, they're just massive, like the one yesterday, 30k on commencement, 60k on completion. Like 2 really, really nice heavyweight senior positions that he wouldn't have been able to get anywhere near if he was offering contingent service. You know, no way. But that takes a few weeks to get over the line often. It's not because he's not doing the right things. It's just the process of the sign-off process sometimes takes long. But no, it's so much easier than you think it's going to be. And it can happen really quickly.
Now, Louise, my last question, and I never ever do this because I hate plugs on anything, but I really want to, and it's because there's nothing available like this in Australia, and I get asked how do I do it, and I really, really, really am very passionate about people moving to this model. So can you give me an overview of how what your sort of sweet spot is? Is it with one-on-one consultants? Is it going into a business and sort of training and developing leaders as well as consultants? How would a business, what would your advice be to a business, how they would work with you to sort of develop that retained search capability?
Okay, cool. Thank you. As of course, we're geared towards, and our sweet spot is teaching teams of people. So we like to take a team of anywhere between 2 and 6 together. Sometimes what we do is break that up, and they are individuals from different firms, and more often than not they are individuals from within the same firm, and we like to include the leader in that process so that we're all going through that together. And what we do is we start with the mindset piece, and what is retained search? You know, what are the big firms doing, and what are search firms doing that means that they can charge their 33 or 40%? What's different to what we're doing at the moment? And largely there aren't many differences, but there are some key differences. And importantly, why do clients buy it? And they do, but why do they? What is the benefit to them? And then we take them through the second stages, which is the sales process. How do we sell it? What should our sales process look like? Because we're no longer saying, let me just send some CVs for free, please. We're saying, we want a significant sum of money now, please, before we do any work. And so the sales process itself is a bit different. And what I always say is, I liken it a bit to a football match, in that, like you said before, you can win you can put a good player on a pitch and win a few matches. You can win if you put a good consultant in and ask a few times and win a few retainers. But to consistently win, you need a plan, and you need to be able to put those people in the right position consistently for them to be able to win projects. And that's where we give them that framework and that process for the sales process, which is identifying the clients, recommending it, closing it, objection handling it, and giving them all the skills to be able to bring an opportunity right through to close and win, and how to propose it, and the templates and the terms and the proposals and everything that they need to do that. And then the delivery module, which is how do we deliver them. And so we generally work with teams, but some people do the course on their own as individuals, and we work with them as independents too.
Awesome. I really, really, really would love a whole heap of people to take this course on, Louise. Seriously. I just want to stress, I never plug anything on my podcast because it's not about that. But there's just nothing available like this. And I'm quite excited. It's the way forward.
I would love to teach them. So send them my way, or anybody that's interested, come and talk to me. There's a come and talk to us button on the website. That books a call in my diary. I'd like to chat to you, find out where you are, what you want to do, what your thoughts are, and we can see whether it's something that I can help you with.
That's amazing. And I'll include Louise's and her business's details in the podcast intro, so please do click on that link. But yeah, Louise, thank you so much for your time. I've absolutely loved it.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Really nice to talk to you, Ez.
And that concludes episode 8 with our guest speaker, Louise Archer. We hope you enjoyed listening.